yeah, don't marry your products. We say revenue is vanity, cash flow is king, and profit is sanity. So we want to make sure that while we talk about numbers, we're going to focus on net profit here. Revenue sounds super cool, except if you're not
Yes.
making any money. So we have a minimum profitability requirement of $12 per unit on Amazon. If your product is not hitting that, or you're considering launching in Amazon, make sure that when you're looking at your products and you're running your numbers, you have to go everything by the numbers, okay? If so, then I can have a 4 inventory turn in a year, and that's the real metric we're shooting for at the end of this, okay?
Welcome to the Bricks and Banks podcast, where real estate meets real wealth. Whether you're building from the ground up or stacking your paper to the ceiling, Steph breaks down property power plays and money moves you can act on. From first-time buyers to seasoned investors, this podcast is your blueprint for financial freedom through real estate, business, and investment. Subscribe now. It's time to build your future. This is Bricks and Banks with Steph.
Before we dive into the conversation, I want to let you know that this episode is a paid partnership with BetterHelp. You know what's interesting? We all have these patterns in our lives. The ways we react when we are stressed out, hurt, or disappointed. Maybe shutting people out or walking yourself into exhaustion. Or that voice in your head that says you're not good enough. For me, it's shutting people out. And here is the thing. We know that these patterns aren't helping us. We can see them clearly, but breaking them, that's a completely different story. I used to think I could just power through on my own, that time will heal everything, or I just needed to be stronger. But the truth is, some cycles are nearly impossible to break on your own. Not because you're weak, but because you're so close to see the full picture. That's why having outside support, real professional support, becomes a game changer. When you have someone who is trained to help you understand why these patterns exist and give you actual tools to help change them, everything shifts. You're not just surviving anymore, you're actually on your path to healing. That's why I'm partnering with BetterHelp today. BetterHelp is on a mission to make starting therapy easier. They will connect you with a credentialed therapist who was trained to listen to you and give you helpful, unbiased advice, ensuring confidentiality throughout the process. You just get to fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist as soon as possible. And if that's not the right fit, don't fret. You can easily switch therapists at any time at no extra cost. To get started, head on to betterhelp.com/bricks and banks. That is betterhelp.com/bricks and banks to get 10% off your very first month of therapy. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description so you can get right on. Breaking the cycle starts with one step, and this could be yours. Going to therapy is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. BetterHelp makes therapy simple with 10% off your first month of therapy to help you get started. So what are you waiting for? Remember, you don't have to do this alone. A problem shared is a problem half solved. Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of the Bricks and Banks podcast, where real estate meets real wealth. On today's episode, we're diving into the e-commerce side of things, and we have our guest today, Neil Twa, to guide us through that conversation. Neil is the CEO of Voltage Holdings. He's an investor, an entrepreneur, and the host of a top 3 globally ranked podcast. He's launched and scaled multiple Amazon FBA brands to 8 figures and taken some all the way to exits. We'll unpack his journey from his senior role at IBM to building and selling brands, the mindset behind the don't marry your product quotes, which is popular for, and the playbook that helped a new brand hit $3,000 a day under 20 days. Neil, you've lived this life. You're living it and you're doing it. Welcome to the pod today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, this is the business we do every day on a multi-channel e-commerce company, and we have multiple companies within our holding company. And yeah, don't marry your products, and we'll talk about what does it take to figure out what the heck to sell and who to sell it to, and we can talk about how to make it profitable, and then we can talk about the traffic and environment of building an e-commerce company that gets eyeballs on your offer, which is super important. And we can talk about what we call the platinum principle, which is just, the whole thing wrapped up in
Hmm.
the business plan that we have, which is to build these companies to an exit.
Wow. And I'm very intrigued about the FBA, Amazon FBA business, because it's gotten a lot of traction in the past and a lot of people invested money in that line of things and they lost money. Speaking to a
Hmm.
lady, so I'm part of a school community. It's called the School of Hard Knocks. And basically we have mentors from around the world, especially essentially business owners, billionaires, millionaires who are basically teaching and grooming with young entrepreneurs on that path. So
Yeah.
one of the ladies reached out to me today and she was like, oh, she makes 10K monthly. Was it 10K monthly? Or she said, oh, 10K daily from Amazon FBA. And I'm like,
We
dude,
could
are you
both.
whining? Is it?
That's a good
Is that
question.
a typical number or she's just pulling my legs?
Well, I mean, 10K a month is definitely doable. It's making sure that it's profitable that's more important. Driving revenue is different than driving profit. We say revenue is vanity, cash flow is king, and profit is sanity. So we want to make sure that while we talk about numbers, we're going to focus on net profit here. Revenues, it sounds super cool, except if you're
Yes.
not making any money.
Mm-hmm.
That's not super cool. And I think a lot of times when people fail in business, or any kind of business, whether they're starting an e-commerce company and they're targeting, Amazon as their first channel, or
Yeah.
they're starting a franchise, or they're starting a real estate company, or they're starting a lead gen or marketing company, or even starting a podcast that they want to monetize. It's very important they understand how they're making money in the fundamentals of business and how to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that it's profitable. And of
Yeah.
course, not run that business by gut feel. Many people make that mistake and turn out to derive more revenue than profit and call the whole thing a failure, right?
Mm. Yeah, because also having an accounting background, I'm a chartered accountant. I've worked with two of the top big four companies. So I
Hmm.
understand the importance of cash flow. The cash flow
Hmm.
statement is the single most important statement. Yeah, your balance sheet is good and nice, but at the end of the day, where your investors are looking out is the cash flow. Is there cash in this business or it's just facade and big
Yeah, and again,
balances
that
on the balance
caveat
sheet?
for profitable
Exactly.
cash flow would be something I'd interject there.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive
Yeah.
deep into the discussion. I
Okay.
titled the episode From IBM to Eight-Figure Amazon Brands, New Tour on Building and Exiting for Millions.
Well, there we go. That's the whole concept. That's
That's the whole
the whole
concept.
business. Soup to nuts, if you will.
So let's start with your journey. Like,
All
what
right.
was your childhood growing up? What were the early influences that shaped you? Would you say that shaped you to who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, without getting too boring or too detailed, the end result is I didn't walk my way into business. I crawled my way and climbed my way and struggled my way and pivoted through different changes and
Uh,
challenges in life to get where I'm at. I didn't start out with a family who had business or was entrepreneurial. My dad was a hardworking guy and blue collar. Money in our house was a four-letter word. We jokingly said we don't talk about money in the house. That disrespects dad. If you want or need or complain about money, you're not appreciative of how hard he was working. And I understand that as a father and a husband. At the same time, I just didn't understand about business and finances, and I understood that if I wanted something that was beyond what we had, I had to go get it. I had to figure out something to do. So by the time I was 12, I was running some side hustle lawn mowing where I was going around asking, for 5, 10, 15 bucks to mow lawns in our neighborhood. And that gave me some side hustle cash. And so I kind of decided that, at an early age, that was kind of how I would help myself out in the process. As I got older and wanted to get to more jobs, my parents were like, "No, you don't need a job just yet," and I'm like, "But I don't have any money." So like we kind of went back and forth on that, right? Um,
yeah.
and as I got into high school and stuff, I realized that, really what I wanted to do at that point, and I was very convinced in it, is I wanted to become a fighter pilot. I wanted to go into the U.S. Air Force, and I wanted to fly fighter jets. So I was actually pretty good at school at that point. I really didn't have to learn very much, and I had pretty good grades. I was also in music and played music since the fourth grade, and so by the time I got to my senior year, I hadn't applied for college or anything like that. That wasn't my path. I was going to go be a fighter pilot. And so I
Yeah.
remember the first semester of my senior year, I went down and applied because I was turning 18 later that year and was going to go through the process of applying and, paperwork and all that stuff. And the first part of the test was just to determine some of the basics of physical fitness and other things related to being a fighter pilot. And that wasn't the real problem because I was, running 3 hours a day playing basketball and weightlifting all the time, and I was extremely fit. I just ran into a problem being too tall that I couldn't fit in the cockpit with my helmet on.
Oh,
They couldn't.
really?
Yep, too tall. So that was the end of that.
Snap.
They're like, sorry,
Oh,
this isn't going
why
to.
couldn't they give you a bigger
That
jets
was
to
the ones
fly?
that they trained on, the F-16E, and so I couldn't actually get into the cockpit. So they were like, "Sorry, you can't even get into the training if you can't fit in the cockpit." So dang. So not knowing what to do, by the last semester of my senior year, I just started filling out applications for college, scholarships, music, writing, anything I could do to get, figure out where to go next, because my parents weren't just going to let me sit around the house, and I didn't have really great job prospects. And so I'm like, well, I guess I'll go to college. So I did. I ended up getting a work study. I ended up getting a pretty large scholarship for music, and went off to a liberal arts college to play music and study music theory. And, my end route was probably band and band something or another, teaching or something else. But it's not really
The
what I wanted
cool,
to do anyways.
the cool band kid.
I band kid. I was like, hey, that's what I want to do. But honestly, by the second year when I failed out of school because I didn't know how to learn in college, didn't want to be there anyways, wasn't really applying myself, probably skipped more classes than I went to. I, realized I was like, this isn't working. What am I going to do? And right about that same time, the internet came online in full form, and they were rolling out email addresses, and they were rolling out computers, and they were setting up the lab. I'm like, hey, I want to be that. So I changed my work study so I could go down and work at the computer lab, and really found my passion in the technology at first, and building the computers and networking and doing all that stuff. I then realized very quickly there was so much more you could do with the
Hmm.
internet. It's just anything you could kind of envision. And as we went into 98, 99, and into 2000, obviously the internet bubble was huge. And I got a programming job later on as I went to go look at the computer science degree, and they wanted to teach me old school Fortran and computer programming from accounting and big corporate systems, which was not web technologies and what was going on in the front end of the world. I wanted to be a part of that, like the startups and the businesses. So I got a programming job and taught myself how to program internet languages. At that point, it was HTML and ASP and data driven and that kind of stuff. And that was a new skill set. And it was something I was pretty good at, actually. And that got me into some contracting jobs at a company called Sprint in Kansas City, Missouri. And with that, I got an opportunity to apply as a contractor for a full time position into their mobile division as they were launching the first mobile communication device. And that was a big deal because I ended up being like the 5,000th badged person into
Wow.
that company. I was put in front of a team of 5 people whose average age was dead. I was 19, and they were all much older than me. And I was told, here's your team you need to manage, build the web pages, build out the knowledge system that we need to support the customer reps and the people who are, taking phone calls. And so that was my job. And we built out like 50,000 web pages to support that launch of those devices and those phones. We built a huge system, got the first implementation of a knowledge management learning system in a corporation. We were one of the first to do that. And 5 years later in that business, I kind of worked my way up the chain and done really well and had successful projects and was on that corporate path. And we watched that company grow from 5,000 to 80,000 employees. It was a huge growth situation. And IBM came in to do a project with Sprint, and the team came in, people I've never met before, and they were doctorates and degrees from Yale and Harvard, and all the IBM people came in, right, and all this stuff. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Made friends with a bunch of them, worked on co-projects, and ended up becoming good friends with the partner who was on the project, who saw over the year or so that we worked together that I was performing well and that I was good at my job, and we became friends. And he said, hey, there's a job in IBM, you should go apply for it. And I said, okay. So I put my application in, and they said, come fly out to Armonk, New York, and do your interview. So I was like, oh, that's super cool. Walked in, 15 minutes. Took me, 6 hours to get there from Kansas City, and 15 minutes into the interview, and they're like, great, we sure appreciate you. We'll let you know. And I'm like, well, crap, I bombed that interview. And as I was flying home, I got a call that said, hey, when can you start? So
Wow.
I went home and gave my 2 weeks notice, and I went to work for IBM and got to have a lot of fun with that. But really, at the end, that was just another growth step in a process I wasn't ever intending to be on in the first place. It's just where I ended up. The corporate place was where I went to get money and where the money was flowing, and so there wasn't a whole lot of places to do that. And so I was just kind of following the path. And when IBM came along, I'm like, well, let's follow that path. And so I just kind of kept going with that and had success in it, and got to work on very large accounts and sat in the boardrooms of some of the largest corporations in the world, and got to spend time in Wall Street and with companies down there, and even moved there for 8 months. Lived in Manhattan and commuted around, which was a lot of fun. Very different New York than the one
Yeah.
today. And then life got to be very different. I had a marriage in that process, and that marriage unfortunately fell away. So that was one of the big life failures for me, was ending up in a divorce that took over a year and pretty much reset me all the way down to debt and credit cards and stuff I didn't own and living out of a suitcase, which was not fun. And had to kind of start my life over there again. And that kind of sucked.
Were you still at your job in IBM at this point, or
No, I was still in IBM at that point, and because I was
okay?
flying, I had a credit card, a laptop, consulting at
Oh,
different places. I was traveling 2 to 3 times a week. I just ended up becoming a road warrior for over a year. And by road warrior, I mean I just let my apartment lapse, put my stuff in storage. I just lived out of my suitcase and traveled for about a year. That was very fun and very kind of annoying by the end of that. Sort of done with that. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling a long story, but it was really that I realized around 2007 that not only did I want to get married again because I found somebody who I realized was really my soulmate
hmm,
and wanted to build a family, but IBM was also transitioning through some things. And when I realized that it was time for me to leave, it was about 2 years after my mentor died, who was my uncle. He was kind of in the rich dad poor dad kind of situation with Kiyosaki. He was my rich dad, if you will, because he had the knowledge and information, had an entrepreneurial family, was building a boat company, was a very different person in the way he thought about money and life and abundance and stuff. And so we had all these wonderful conversations and he really poured into me, which I appreciated greatly, to the
hmm,
point that I'm still remembering things from our conversations, things he did, things he said that are still applicable to me now, that I'm using in where I'm at, which I really didn't understand than what he was telling me at that point. And it kind of all stunk in. And so what happened was I was really ready to leave because he'd always encouraged me to get out and do my own thing, push, push, push. And about 2 years after he died, 2007, situation changed, life changed. I wanted to get out of that job, and we were getting married, and I wanted to settle on a family. I didn't want to be traveling anymore. It was a couple of years after he died. It was kind of a perfect storm, and IBM basically said, "Hey, we're gonna give you early retirement, or tell you to go to a new division, or you can move to Argentina." And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to move to Argentina." And they're like, "Well, you probably should take early retirement." So I did. So I burned the boats and walked out, got my severance from IBM. And that same year, I got married and decided it was time to start my business and never look back. That was the opportunity I saw to just kind of
take the leap.
restart, take the leap. New wife, she's a RN BSN by trade, was working as a nurse, and was on her way to become a nurse practitioner. And so we had some of her income. And so I'm like, hey, with your income and my severance, this is a moment. She's like, go for it. You've always wanted to do this. And, let's figure this out. And she got pregnant. She got pregnant. We got pregnant, however you say that these days, in about October or so. But she had some high risk complications. So by December, she was in a higher risk situation with the baby. And we were going to the doctor twice a week. And so she ended up having to quit her job because she ran out of medical leave act and kind of just ended up on bed rest for the remainder of that pregnancy. So we went from, a high income dink family with, all this prospects getting married and stuff. And then, starting a business. And then it's kind of like, "Meow," all of that disappeared. And we were a family with no money while I'm
Wow.
trying to start a business in our first year of marriage. Right. So, people think, is there a right time to start? Is there a wrong time to start? Is there a perfect situation? They want to hear people's like, hey, I quit and everything went great. We made all this money and da 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 da. And like, I don't know anybody's story who's like that. It's like things went south,
Yeah.
right?
Salt.
Everything changed. Everything had to be changed and to create opportunity. And a lot
Hmm.
of things changed in that first year of our marriage, no doubt about it. And that was about 18 years ago. Obviously, we're still
Wow.
together. My wife and my daughters here over my shoulder. We have 4 daughters now. And life
Oh,
is,
it's so pretty.
yeah,
You
yeah,
run
but
a
I mean,
girls'
it really,
hostel.
you'll know they're my pride and my joy. I love them absolutely to death, and,
Yeah.
glad for every one of them. I feel blessed to have them with me. As a young man, I prayed for lots of women. You know, how young men are. It's like, God, send me lots of women and beautiful women, Lord, please. And I just wasn't very specific about what that time frame would actually be or how that would occur. And since he's got a really
You
funny sense of
ended up
humor,
getting
he just handed me a bunch of daughters.
nice.
I'm like, here you go, dude. This is
Yeah.
what you asked for.
Deal with that.
Okay, cool. I received that. Thank you. That was very wonderful, God. I just wasn't very specific about my prayers. So be very specific about your prayers. If it's in God's will, you might be surprised what actually happened. Yeah. I started a
Really.
series of businesses online and offline and consulting and tech lead and mobile and use my experience in mobile to do affiliate and mobile marketing as well as business and development and support with a number of clients that kind of got my businesses turned to an opportunity. And then I made a really dumb, naive mistake. Uh, there's something called the sunk cost fallacy. Have you ever heard that?
Sunk cost fallacy. No,
Yeah.
not yet. I
Okay.
know sunk cost, but not the fallacy of it.
Yeah. So, right. Sunk cost fallacy is basically when you put too much information, heart, blood, sweat, money, tears into something, and you continue to keep working it even though it's not serving you at all. So, yeah. So, I went so far into a business opportunity that I couldn't see the forest through the trees. I deployed too much capital, too much time, too much money, too much risk into it. And I could not see the forest through the trees, things that were happening around me, things that I didn't want to accept. And it ultimately was not serving me. And when I came to a realization after discovering some of the fiduciary responsibilities that were being mismanaged, I realized I had to step away. And in the process of doing that, the only opportunity that the legal team gave me at that point, basically based on the fact that I was not involved in these issues with the management of the finances that was being mismanaged, was to get indemnified and then file business bankruptcy. So it
Wow.
ended up going into bankruptcy. This
What
was my
business
fourth.
was what business
Yeah, it
was
was called
this?
a I called Electronetics. It actually was part of the process of me realizing how to innovate products in a physical world, not just be an inventor, because I had helped invent a product.
Okay.
I was setting on a patent in this company. It had to do with some boring stuff around power management, if you will, and fixing and managing power in low power situations. You know, brownouts and blackouts occur when power goes too
Yes.
hot during the summer. We had a technology that would allow people to voluntarily save money on their bill while supporting the grid. Should there
Okay.
be power issues, it would automatically reduce lights and other things in the house and support the grids, keep the power on the grid during brownouts and this kind of stuff. And we had large deals with companies in the works and that kind of stuff and inventions on it, patented inventions. And it was a super cool product that really nobody's going to end up hearing about ever. And it was a big part of that sunk cost fallacy of realizing that innovation is more important than invention. Um,
Invention.
because
But
what
was this the
happens is,
first business you started out fresh
no,
out of
not the first
IBM?
business I started. No, I had gotten very good at affiliate and lead gen marketing. And so I was actually for a while doing a lot of lead gen across mobile devices for other
And
companies. So I was acting as a
companies.
paid media, affiliate and making
Expert.
money off the differences. If they, paid me $5, if I could shoot a lead for $2, I made $3. Giving them the leads and stuff helped their business, and a couple of businesses got pretty successful off my efforts, and so I was pretty good at that, and actually made some really good money in the marketing lead gen world doing that. But I didn't own the product. I was very entrepreneurial still, and I would say those were businesses, but really what they were was entrepreneurial tracks in which I didn't truly own the entire business. I owned one
Yeah.
part of it, and if they decided to shut down the offer, I'm hosed.
It's messed up for you.
They started to fire me as a client. I'm hosed. These kinds of problems, right? And
Huh.
and so as I learned that process and eventually came to realize through the bankruptcy and stuff that part of my not owning the control, we call control the controllables, were things that I had allowed others to take too much control of, and I did not have the direct influence or capability to
Uh-huh.
control that outcome. So I was really at the mercy still of someone else's business, even though I was in the business. So I set
Yeah.
about to change that after the bankruptcy, right? Because I realized that's where some of the controls and some of my own logical fallacy had kicked in on the sunk cost side, because I was gone too far down before I realized it wasn't serving me, and should have pivoted sooner and did not. Tough learning lesson, right? But in that process, came to realize that if I could both control the sales, which sales fixes everything, right? Which is the marketing and the engine of sales, and then I could control the outcome of the product. By controlling the product, I now was a business person who owned a company that could
On
manage and
everything.
control. Yep. So we say, keep it all and keep it small, right? So in that way, when I set out to do that again, I changed the way I controlled that. And that's when I actually got into the private label branded world of physical products that I'm in now, which means I can manufacture, control the product pipeline and logistics. I control the product outcome.
Yeah.
We don't invent any products. We simply innovate existing in demand products. And then we put
And
those products in the
private label
market within
it.
our own brands and we market them. Yeah. So we now have full control over the brand. Big difference.
Nice. So how long did you spend doing that?
So the branding part or the part with the media stuff?
The branding one.
So as we started into that, I started the process of learning that around 2012, 2013.
Oh,
And
okay.
then we put our first real brand online and went kind of hard on that one. And by 2015, we had our first seven figures in revenue. Yeah.
Wow, that's very
So we've been at this for
successful.
about 12 years.
That's amazing. I feel like your life should be in a movie. You have such highs,
It's some
such
of those
lows,
things.
and
Yeah, it's
everything in between.
I've been,
You're like,
not only I had to restart my life multiple times, so I've had multiple lives, I had the guy who lived up to the
yeah,
first divorce, and then I had to reset and reinvent myself again, and then up to the bankruptcy, and in business and life, had to reset myself again a bit, but, it's just one of those things that, I have, no doubt in my mind that I'm living the life that I should always have tried to live, with risks that will never have regrets, because I tried
yeah,
everything and, have not, been willing to look at failure as, shut down and put my head in the sand, but to look at it as an opportunity to change and pivot and keep going. And,
exactly.
so I've been living an amazing life, a couple of lives. I'm only 49, but I feel like I've had a couple lives.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one thing I'm grateful for, that I get to have such experts voices like yourself on this platform, because my main goal for this platform is basically to inspire, educate, and empower the next generation to building smarter business policies and
Yeah.
investment decisions. And you've lived that life, so you are here to tell us what to do and what not to do. So you've been in the e-commerce industry for almost 2 decades now, long
Mhm.
before Amazon FBA started, was a household name.
Yeah.
So what did you see back then that others didn't see? Because you basically projected into the future and
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
you
great
took
question
an
because
early opportunity and things.
yeah. Well, business and strategy sometimes is just, a matter of perseverance and tenacity with a bit of luck tossed in, just by just being in the right place at the right time. And then
Huh.
when you're at the right place in the right time, experience tells you that it's time to act. Without that experience, you will miss that opportunity because you won't know when to act. If you're not listening or paying attention to it, you'll continue to miss experiences and opportunities to move, when you're waiting for some giant sign instead of you just taking the action you should have taken, right? Even if you're going to walk alone in it. Okay.
Huh.
And I think that's where a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space who are aspiring to become business owners are waiting for someone else to tell them to jump. They're waiting for someone else to tell them to move. Waiting for someone else's experience to tell them when to do something. And what that is basically a mechanism of protection to keep them from failing at what they're doing. That makes sense?
That makes sense.
And because of that, they don't understand that literally every day as an entrepreneur and a business owner is a performance review of your business, of your life, and of your mental health. Because you can have a high in the
Of your,
afternoon and a low in the evening. You can have a high in the morning and a low in the afternoon. It can just be like one of these roller coaster things that people don't understand. And there's so much mental prowess, protection, coping mechanisms, and personal strategies that I use and others like me use to maintain a consistent and even flow of understanding of business, even in the peaks and the valleys. Okay. What we don't want to do is in that emotional cycle of change, we don't want to end up in what's called the valley of despair. And we don't want to stay at the so high at the top that we are
so
blindly ignorant of anything that is occurring. You do that and you can end up bankrupt like me because you're not willing to see things for the truth of them. You're not willing to look at the ugly things and turn the rock over, like Good to Great says with Jim Collins, and look at the nasty, ugly things and say, okay, I have to deal with those too. Those who
okay.
stay at just looking at the nasty uglies and build themselves up in their mind to be failures and everything I do is a failure and the whole world's against me and everything I try doesn't work will end up in that valley of despair and they'll never come out of it. And where is that in the world of business? Well, we call it commiseration, right? Where a lot of people get online and commiserate with others through their posts and comments and social media. You know who I'm talking about, right? Seems
Yeah,
like
like,
everything's going
oh, I
wrong.
totally
They always
resonate with your posts. The economy
Yeah,
is
you just look at their
down. It's
posts
not a
and you
good
get mentally
time.
drained. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this person's having another problem again." You get mentally drained by that negative energy, right? And what we know is a dead battery cannot jump a dead battery, so stay away from people who can't charge your spirit, which means you have to learn to know who's around you. You have to discover who is your best supporters and your truth tellers in your life, and those who are more toxic or looking at you negatively, friends, family, or otherwise, you have to look at them and say, maybe they need to be moved over here for a little bit. Right. Yep. And that means even shutting off a lot of the world information and social media so that you can find a place where you get calm and peace instead of dealing with the storms of other people's lives and trying to take it all on as your own. This is happening. The tariff is happening. What's this administration doing? And what happens with this? And what's happening in the future? And a lot of what isms and what abouts take people's brains and basically shove them down into that valley of despair. And the best thing a business person listening to this thing can do is not get on and just start following motivational quotes and rah rah memes and, hustle and grind that is going to burn you out too. What you need to
Yes.
do is just find a happy place median in your brain where you can deal with the difficulties and the experiences, and you can find the right people to support you through that process correctly. And then you can use that as your mental and personal leverage to continue tenacity, perseverance, and fortitude, which is totally required to be in business, no matter what you do in business. And those, yeah, because we don't rise to the goals we set, but we fall victims to the systems we put in place. And so many people forget, yep, they forget that a system could be their routine during the day, right? It could be the way that they structure their day in such a way that it helps protect their mental fortitude in the challenges they know that are ahead, and should anticipate challenges ahead, but also realize that today is sufficient unto itself. So stop trying to plan for tomorrow, next week, or next month. And I think a lot of people are always in that future thought mode because they're on social media or other things and they see the successes of others. And so they keep waiting for that to happen. So they keep thinking it's going to be next week and next month. And there's a
And they fail
problem
to
with
enjoy the
that.
journey.
There's a problem with that, right? It actually starts to
Yeah.
break your mentality down. It actually starts to break your perseverance down. There was a study in the POW camp in Vietnam. Longest held POW was an admiral. Uh, and he went through a process of helping people overcome those challenges. And what he would learn from people was those who kept saying, we'll get there by Christmas, and Christmas came and they weren't released, would be the ones who'd ultimately break down and be the first to die. Those who
Hmm.
understood that they would get out whenever they get out, whatever time that was, had the mental fortitude to persevere through that POW camp. And they wrote a book about it later on. It's a very powerful read in the mindset of success in very bad situations. Okay. And he
Yeah.
saved as many people as he could by helping them understand to stop saying, "Well, if only tomorrow, or if only at this event, or if only at this time frame, if I get there, then everything will be better."
Hmm.
And they actually set themselves up for failure when that doesn't happen. And every time they do that,
Yeah.
they're building another brick on their mental wall, right?
Yeah.
Things that
Because
they're setting up, things they're creating in their mind.
they've already pitched themselves against that goal point. So if they don't hit it, they feel like they're failures already and they just give up.
And then every
So
time
the
that
key is
happens because they set the wrong expectations of the wrong time, energy, attention, and money. Okay. When they do that over those four different variables that are levers in every business type, we'll talk about in e-commerce too, but in every business type, those four levers have to be pulled. And when you are not approaching the energy and attention correctly, or the time required, or even the money required, you will set variables that you believe have to be achieved, but there's no basis for that anywhere except for you. And then when they don't occur, every time that happens, it's putting another negative checkbox on your list, and it's weighing you down, weighing you down, weighing you down. And so what we need to look at in terms of time is more of a phrase is, I will get there when I get there, but I'm going to get there.
because a lot of people put pressure on themselves and compare. Oh, this
Yes.
person built his YouTube channel in 2 days. I'm gonna do it. I didn't make mine in 2 days. It means I failed. No, you didn't fail because you don't know the leverage this person had. You don't know the
You
resources
don't
the
know the
person had
variables and
access
the
to.
factorables you can, and it breaks the first
Exactly.
rule, which is control the controllables. Okay. And one
Control the
controllable we talk
controllables.
about in business, yep, control the controllables. And especially in my life with my daughters who are homeschooled and are part of what we do in our business and our life every day because they're around us, is to remind them about that controlling the controllable. Because in that affect, they can control the way they think 100%, and they control the way they act 100%. They are total control. That is the last thing they have control over in this world, no matter what else happens to them. They have the way they can control that they can control themselves. And I often remind them, if they want to hear God laugh, tell them your plans. And if you want them rolling on the floor, tell them your expected time frame, right? Yeah, he'll be rolling and laughing.
By 25, I wanna be married.
My
I have my
vision board, right?
kids, a vision board of 3 buildings, 4 cars, and living happy life
You
in
know what? It's
Miami.
not a problem to have goals and expectations. It really is
Yeah.
not. But you have to control the belief about your ability or time frame in which you get them, not whether or not you could get them, but allow yourself the grace and time to get there while continuing to persevere every day. I call it, there's a 3-foot thing. You can't climb Everest without walking 3 feet at a time. You'll run out of oxygen. You may not know that the person front of you fell, and you may not know the person behind you has fallen is going to pull you down because you're simply not aware of it. Every 3 feet we move forward in our business is a 3 foot measure towards the goal line. How fast we get there is really just dependent upon our work or other work or work in the business or things we have to solve that derail us temporarily because, well, something went wrong with the credit card, something went wrong with the customer, something went wrong with the product manufacturing, we have a defect problem, we have this problem, something with the listing
Yeah.
occurred on Amazon and it went down, something with TikTok they did went stupid. Things just happen that, have to be
Mm.
solved in business that derail you from getting forward. Then you pick up and you move the next 3 feet. And pretty soon you look up and not only have you not ran out of oxygen, but you've taken other people along with you, not just yourself. And you've actually got right up against the summit of where you were trying to accomplish. So we need people to really understand that in any business, the successful people don't have one particular business model they're doing that's more successful than another. It's the person who's successful in the business because you will find they are the most tenacious. They do not take no for an answer. Everything is a KNOW, not a no. Even if it's a hell no, it's still a well, maybe I didn't explain it correctly, so maybe you don't know. And
Yeah.
then it is that perseverance to give yourself time and energy. When we needed the money that we had, which wasn't a lot after our bankruptcy, and we needed time, we sold the house.
Mm.
We moved to a different location. When they had repoed the car, we had to go find a new car and pay $2,500 in cash because that's what I had to pay for an old car to get my family around at that point while I got things going again. I was willing to do things that others are not willing to do. And everyone has some really wonderful excuse. Well, Neil, you don't understand. That's easy for you to say. You got everything going on. No, dude, I remember after my bankruptcy, I took a screenshot of my Arvis bank account, which is a bank here in America, and I took that screenshot, and then there was 2 accounts, and they had a total of $567 in them, total. And I had a
Wow.
pregnant wife on our 4th daughter and a home and business and things to do and money that needed and kids that need fed and medical stuff that needed taken care of. So I know what it is to have your back against the wall and have to fight your way out of that situation with children and family and others. People come in with these excuses. Well, I can't do this, I can't do this, and can't do this, and my family this. And all I hear is, I won't try, I didn't try, I'm afraid to try and I'm
Mm.
afraid to change. Okay, well, I have to sell my house. Okay, I've done that. Well, I won't have a car. Well, get another car. My wife won't be happy with me. Well, work her through the process. My husband won't be happy with
Mm.
me. Well, work them through the process. Figure it out. Become a team. Think about it as not the two of you against each other, but the two of you against the world. And if you can't figure that out, then you run into my number 2 problem. I tell my children all the time the number 2 rule is who you marry is the most important decision you'll ever make in your entire life. I won't be able to say that I'm here where I'm at today doing what I'm doing without my wife of 18 years, Katie, who has been along my side through all of these challenges.
Shout out to Katie.
No doubt, because she is a true ride or die partner. She has never put me in a position to feel inferior. She never
Mm.
made me feel bad about the situation with the bankruptcy. And she just said, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. She's never, um, you know, personally attacked me or had arguments regarding myself or anything I had in what I was trying to do for my family. And she has had a faith with Jesus greater even than mine at times to allow that
Wow.
ability for me to do whatever is necessary while she took care of the home. And for that reason, I was freed up to do whatever was necessary, legally, ethically, morally, of course, to put money into the bank and to make it all work. Right. And I wouldn't have been able to do this whole thing without her.
Wow. Shout out to Katie. So let's talk about e-commerce today. Someone wants to get into the e-commerce business, Amazon FBA to be precise. What are we looking at? You're the consultants. Just let us know.
Okay, so in simple terms, I'm going to try to debunk the same crap I hear about these hopium guru mindset people. Okay, and for a moment, as you're listening to me speak to this, realize I have nothing to sell you. There's no course. There's no program. This is not what this is about. It's about the truth. And the
Mm.
truth is, today in the world of e-commerce, Amazon FBA, if you can't spend more than $25,000 launching your business, you need to save that money before you try. Okay. The opportunities to sell $20 products on Amazon now is gone. The market share for those products is already been taken. There is already a level of cheap, we call them cheap Chinese crappy products that have pretty much overtaken all that sub 20, sub $30 product margin. And if companies were established there 5 or 10 years ago, they're probably okay if they have higher profit products. But if you try to launch those today, you will fail because you will simply
Mm.
not have enough money to support the business and yourself and the marketing and Amazon's fees to launch those kinds of products anymore. Okay. So if we want to look at opportunities to pivot into where it is, there is a barrier of entry that's slightly higher now. It requires more money to get into. However, because you jump above the cheap Chinese crappy products and above mid-marketing brands, you start competing at a higher brand to brand level. Those are products
Okay.
typically 50 to 150 in retail price point. Our average is anywhere between 150 and $350 now for the products that we're launching in all of our brands. Okay. And we're doing that because the opportunity has shifted, but the
Yeah.
profitability, most importantly, of those products is much greater. So we have a minimum profitability requirement of $12 per unit on Amazon. If your product is not hitting that, or you're considering launching an Amazon, make sure that when you're looking at your products and you're running your numbers, you have to do everything by the numbers. Okay. Then
So the
when after
$12
you have
returns, sorry, the $12 returns, is it a requirement by Amazon or this is your own process
this is my
benchmark?
own success in this business model, not having
Okay.
products that sell less than $12 in net profit per unit. Net being what we keep
Okay.
after
Yes.
fees, cost of goods, returns, storage, manufacturing,
Logistics and
marketing,
whatnot.
all of those things that are stacked up on top. There's a net profit of $12 or greater.
$12.
Okay. When you hit that metric, you're now competing closer to brand on brand competition and away from just cheap Chinese crap and all the course and program sellers who are taking up that lower or mid small market, that top tier one, we call it. In the tier two or tier three levels of Amazon, most people don't even know that Amazon's average order value is $69. So what does that tell you? Okay. Anybody playing in the sub $20, $30 range for all of their products isn't even hitting the greatest average order value on Amazon. Right. So if we hit that, then we actually meet up with Amazon's own metrics for products it wants to push and is pushing greater inside of its own system. And their target, which we now know is around $1,800 per year per Prime member. That's their customer lifetime value, 12 months, $1,800 per Prime member. I know my wife spends that in a month on Amazon for our house, but we're definitely above because we're definitely pulling that up. So that means that
Yeah.
we need a product that can sustain that. So when we're looking for our marketing and our research and our products, we need to know that the products can support that, or we shouldn't even consider them. And in the process of doing that, of course, it raises up the cost of goods, which means your capital in has to be a bit greater. But make sure you don't just launch 1,000, 5,000 units of a product you've never marketed before. We always test the product. We do a marketing test of 100, 200 units. When all the numbers go forward and we have an 80% confidence in a process we call the green light process, which literally when the product goes green in my system, all the data points have matched up with our best performing data points from products we have sold and products our clients have sold, as well as data we've gotten from Amazon to validate exact marketing, sales, product types, research data, as well as what's called product opportunity explorer data from Amazon. And I know exactly what Amazon's data is, and I meshed that in a process called our green light process, and out produces products that I have an 80% confidence are high demand, high
Okay.
profitability, and have a market share opportunity that meets criteria for our most successful brands. And with that, I now know the product types that have the highest potential. And from there, they are also tied now to this digital system, this filing system of Amazon called Cosmo, which is a ranking engine, an AI based customer intent engine, okay, which has customer needs within it. And those customer needs make up all the sales on Amazon. Okay. And those customer needs are basically, what are in this large language model, this AI system that Amazon's using now, the need that ties to a product type that answers a question or a statement that leads to an intent that the customer has. So it could be that they are talking to people online and saying, we're going to go camping this weekend. So the large language model also understands that if somebody's making that statement, there's a good
Yeah.
chance they may not have a
They
tent.
would need a
They
tent
need
and
supplies for
backpacks.
that camping trip. You see where we're going with this? So
Yes.
it's taking that customer intent, and then in Amazon, it's taking all this information and data. It's even using the web and another tool they've created called Rufus to program this engine with customer intent phrases and information that leads to a product that the customer is going to go in 30 seconds or less. That's exactly what I needed. I didn't even know I needed that. And I need that because I'm going on a camping trip. And oh, yeah, I forgot propane. So I need to order little propane bottles for my camping stove. Okay. And the system goes, well, yeah, you need propane. Here's the best propane type. And I'm like, great, order, be here in 2 days or 2 hours, right? So that engine, that intent that customer needed is very different than
Yeah.
what was happening just 3 years ago in the system. They have now changed this all over to that customer intent system. And they have now dialed that in so that it targets a 12-month customer lifetime value on Amazon. This is very important we understand this because that's where all the traffic comes from for our products.
Mm.
So if
Okay.
we know we're going to sell a widget because we see that it's in demand and it's conditionally in demand because someone already wants it, we're not inventing it, it's already in demand, right? And we know it's profitable because we ran all of our numbers and the numbers all say it's profitable now. It'll be
Yep.
profitable in 1,000 units if you sell it at this price point and maintain this profit margin so that you have this net profit. Then it will tell us over 12 months what that product will look like. It'll kind of forecast, right? That's called our green light process. So when I know that and I see that, if the test market of 100 and 200 units goes to the market, I find the 20% back because I'm not smart enough to tell the market what it wants. We already discovered that, right? But I
Yeah.
am smart enough to read the data. And
Okay.
when that product starts to
Yes.
sell on Amazon, Amazon's information systems and people inside of it then tell me as they buy, purchase, and rank the product inside the system, how close am I to selling through my green light process with the sales I'm getting? How fast is it turning over? Is it becoming profitable? Does it project itself to be profitable in that test? Did I do a good job selling the listing and information, images, copy, and graphics to that audience that wants that product? Okay, it's very clearly stated like this: we sell that data to an AI engine, and that AI engine has an audience inside of it that wants to buy that product, and then it will help them buy the product, and then it will deliver the product to that customer, and then it will help them return it or deal with it or even help them get reviews or help them buy other things. That's its whole job. Okay. It's not my job. That's part of the system. It's a miracle the dang thing even works. It's so large, right? They do
So
6,000
that
units a minute.
so that exercise essentially guides the product you're testing out in the market at that point.
I'm testing a data set, right? Kind of like you test an image or a copy or a ad campaign. I'm basically testing that same data inside Amazon to have it tell me, did I convert that person correctly? Am I converting them fast enough? Is it a positive experience for them? And when I have the products shipped to Amazon, I don't ship it myself. Amazon ships it through their warehouses. That's the fulfilled by Amazon system, right? Then I
Yes.
don't even have to touch the product to ship it or return it or do anything. They deal with all that to the customer. Okay, that's their job. So when the engine has now understood who I am and it says, oh, we understand you're a camping widget and people want to buy camping widgets and we know who those people are. And so we're going to say, do you want this camping widget? And people come to my listing, which is basically a web page on Amazon, and they look at it and they go, yeah, this is the one we were looking for. And they buy it. That algorithmic engine starts to kick over in those first couple hundred units and tells me, am I over the target? Am I converting well? Am I making sales? Am I, on the path? And if the answers are all yes to that market test in the data, literally, then I'll order 1,000 units, right? Because now I'm putting good money into a good product I know that I can sell. And as long as the product isn't being rejected, as long as they're not boxing it up and turning it back, as long as it's not breaking, as long as they're not leaving bad reviews,
Huh.
then I built the formula required for a successful product in that new brand. Okay. And then I'm going to want to repeat that process, what we call our 5x5 product launch process. I'm going to test 5 products in the market with the goal of getting those total 5 or 1 or 2 of them to an average of 25 sales a day. Okay.
So
That's just an
what's the
average.
timeline? Sorry, what's the timeline you allow for the testing?
So the
A
testing
couple of
will be
months
usually
or
90 days, right? So if I
okay.
put 100 or 200 units in and I'm launching a brand new product, I have to give it up to 90 days worth of tests to determine whether or not that 100, 200 units is not only selling fast, it's returning reviews and it is showing me all the data. It could happen in less than 90 days, it could happen less than 60, it could happen in 30. If everything's right over the target, it'll simply happen faster, but it will happen within that time frame. Okay. So that's why I'm going to launch multiple tests of products because I'm simply going to go faster in finding the data. Here's where people make huge mistakes when they do e-commerce. They don't test enough data. They put all their hopes and dreams in one product and 1,000 units. And their sunk cost fallacy is that they marry that product in that data and that hopium, and then they stick with that thing and try every growth hack and every tactic and everything possible to make it work, only to find out that it's not ever going to work because they got the data wrong from the very beginning. And so they're basically pushing, okay, a snowball uphill in July, expecting that somehow it's going to magically freeze. My analogy is very bad, but they keep pushing into that and they marry their products. We do not marry our products because we want to find the data set that is best aligned in our brand inside of Amazon to that audience intersect that's occurring with this AI engine. And the only way to do that is to test more data. Okay. And when I test more data, there's a law of averages that kicks in. 1 to 2 of those product tests out of the 5 will rise to the top. They will make more sales. They will convert better. I will have written the listings, images, and copy better. I will dial the audience in better based on either experience or just understanding better who the market was when I made those changes. And when that data dials in, now you got to hang on because you got a new problem. And that is Amazon wants to sell the crap out of your product, which is a good problem to have because
It's a
now
good
sales
problem. Then you
fixes
have to
everything.
bother your manufacturer. So in terms of marketing, what does the marketing side looks like?
Well, first, I need the organic engine in Amazon to respond positively to my data set. When 1 or 2 of those
Okay.
5 products responds positively, it means organically inside of Amazon, I am ranking that product in their intelligence engine, their AI Cosmo engine. That
Okay.
is a great indicator that the data set is now positively responding to the audience that it has put me in front of. And now I need to do 2 things. I'm going to put on marketing inside of Amazon's pay-per-click marketing engine to support. Once I know organically it's working good, I'm going to put PPC on top of it. And then I'm going to order that 1,000 units. And as soon as that 1,000 units is checked in to Amazon, their algorithm is going to look at that and say, oh, we saw you had 200 before. All your metrics are super good and people love you. We now have 1,000 units of your product to sell. They're going to naturally start showing it to more people because you have more inventory to move. Here's the important thing. Amazon does not want you to stock out of inventory. If your product is successfully supporting the customer base, they don't want you to stock out. So what are they going to do? They're going to throttle your sales cycle. Okay. They're going to hold back so you don't run out of inventory. You understand what's happening here?
Yes.
Okay.
So when they prompt you, when your product gets to a minimum level, you have to now reach out to your manufacturer to get more products in.
I need that product. Like I proved I could sell it. I can confidently go after that 1,000 units, and I'm going to get that stocked in, and it's going to trigger the algorithm as soon as it checks into their warehouse. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, oh, I got now 1,000 of those. So the next 30 days, it's going to go really quickly compared to the first 100 to 200 units. Okay. What may have taken you 90 days to test 100 and 200 units, you could sell those in the first couple of weeks. We've done it in the first week or even in a couple of days, right? Once that algorithm kicks in, it starts to sell like crazy. If our competitors in this little area in Amazon's filing system who we're targeting as our top competitors are selling 10,000 units a month, guess where I have to get my inventory to actually start overtaking their market share? I have to exceed their inventory. That is correct. If my metrics, okay, if I'm the better selling listing, if the data is all good, but they have 10,000 units moving a month and I have 200 units a month, the algorithm isn't going to see us as comparable. So until my listing capitalizes the inventory part of this and puts in 10,000 units, I may have to go 1,000 and 5,000 and sell through that so I can order the next 5,000 so I can build up my war chest to get to 10,000. I might not be able to do that right away, but if I could, that might be a $100,000 PO, a $250,000 PI, a performance invoice, which goes out to the manufacturer and they make that many units and ship them to me. If I can do that, that is my opportunity to scale. That is the biggest lever between my ability to see this turn into a 6-figure a month run rate. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. I want you to hear me when I say this, because that is where this model actually takes off extremely fast for those who understand the risk to reward ratio of a physical product company. When I put that next meta unit in, that is my opportunity to capitalize. As a business owner, if I just chip away a few thousand units here and there, it's going to take me a long time to gain that market share. And the algorithm will actually start to degrade my data over time if I am not starting to continue to grow towards the top end of that market share of the competition that is already setting there. Does that make sense when I say it that way?
That makes a lot of sense. So, what happens in terms of competition when you've done the market strategy, you've done all the work and see that, okay, this product works? Then someone that has more money than you just copies it and floods
Yeah, so
the
that's really
markets.
not worrisome. That's the myth of the bottom selling bottom selling mosh pit on Amazon, is that you can easily be copied and knocked off. In a brand to brand competition for products that are 50, 150 or higher, those people don't even compete there.
Oh, I see.
You're not even competing in the same tier of buyer psychology, right? Those tier 2, tier 3 buyers know there's a $20 or $30 product. They know the majority of them are probably some knockoff brand or some other thing, and they prefer to buy the tier 2 or tier 3 because there's a higher level of confidence. The fallacy that people get caught into is that I can't sell as much profitably at the $150 range as I can as the $30, and that is all psychological in the mind of the seller and has nothing to do with the actual market.
See.
Yeah, it has
Okay.
nothing to do with the actual market. They believe that the amount of units you move will increase the amount of profitability you have in the business. And that is also a fundamental of business lie and a myth sold by most course program people. That if you sell 1,000 units this month, right, for $5 in profit per unit, then if you sell 2,000 next month, you're going to be rich. Well,
Mm,
no, actually, you're not at all. If you didn't increase the profitability along with increasing the amount of units, you're actually going to find yourself possibly at a loss. The numbers don't work, right? Because you have to capitalize the inventory before it sells through. And if you have $5 in net profit, where's it going to come from?
mm,
You're going to have to put that capital out. So you will not gain anything in month 2. You will have month 3, 4, and 5 before you actually gain that back. But what if you could do it
I
differently?
see.
Okay. What if you
Okay.
got $50 in profit per unit and you sold 500 instead of 1,000 units, but you did it with
Mm,
$50 in profit per unit? And let's say next month you sold 500 units instead of 100, but you did it with $50 in profit. There's a very big
okay.
difference in the numbers and how you
Yes.
maintain
Transfer.
profitability while
Money.
still keeping a minimum of 20% net profit in the business. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah, so I
sense.
want to keep that minimum threshold of 20% net profit in the business. That means for every 1 million in revenues, I'm taking a
Yeah.
minimum of 200,000 in net profit out of that business. Smart investors will not take the money out in the first year of growth. They will deploy it all back into the business. The business will
Okay.
exponentially grow faster when you ride that inventory wave we talked about a minute ago. When
Yes.
we have checked in inventory large amounts on a successful product launch, in the 30 days after 60 days and then 90 days, we've seen businesses go from 50,000 a month to 150,000 to 350,000 a month in 90 days.
Mm,
There's a wave of algorithmic conversion opportunity that most sellers are not either mentally prepared because they don't know, or they may not even be financially prepared, but the business is requiring it. Not Amazon, not me, but technically it is Amazon because the system we're talking about is an
yes.
organic algorithmic system. I've worked with over 1,000 people in the last 12 years. We've done hundreds, if not thousands, of product launches. There's a repeatable process by which we standardly operate each one of these launches so we can see
Mm,
that algorithmic kick occur. And when we see Amazon respond positively past 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 a month, 80,000, 100,000 a month in sales, certain things of that economic marketing engine side of Amazon take over for you. Okay. They
okay.
start to push you out and propagate you. And then when you add PPC, pay per click marketing, it's gas to that organic fire. It's very important people understand that because what will normally happen, Stephanie, is they will go out, launch a product, put marketing on top of it right away, and they will screw up the whole algorithm. It will force
Oh.
them to now pay for marketing in order to get any sales out of their business. If you
No,
get
it
the
doesn't make
organic
sense.
first, right? A locked in organic ranking with that Cosmo engine, and then you add marketing, you've got the winning combination. So many
Okay.
people make this mistake. All right. So, to simple summary, do not launch a product for less than $50 on Amazon. Do not let it launch with less than $12 in net profit per unit. Okay. Launch a 100 to 200 unit marketing test 5 times. with 5 different
5 10.
product types. 5
Yep.
different product types in the same brand, because all we're working on here is brand
Brand.
to figure out which product supports the brand. At this point, we don't care because we're not marrying our product. Okay. We're married to the brand. So we want to figure out which products will serve that brand, regardless of which product it is.
Okay.
And as we go through that data, each time we find a product that successfully does its marketing test, we will do a full product launch of 1,000 units. Okay. Even then,
Nice.
I'm not marrying the product. All I'm proving is how fast can that
I can move this
1,000
brand.
unit move? Could it move in 90 days? If so, then I can have a 4 inventory turn in a year. And that's the real metric we're shooting for at the end of this. Okay. The final metric, the final boss of metrics is a 4 inventory turn in 1 year for that product. 4 times. Why? Because in my greenlight process, I will see a product that has 50% or greater ROI because it's part of my target metrics along with my net profit, which means if I churn it over 4 times in a year, I'll have a 200% ROI on that product in 1 year. Okay. So if I can turn over 1,000 units every 90 days and pull a
Yes.
200% return on that
Sounds
investment,
out
is
of it.
that a good thing for my business?
It's a very good one.
And I'm focused on the right metrics, which means by the end of a 12-month run of that product, I will recognize a good sized net profit from that one product. And then I just need to go find 10 of those, which is why we start
Mm.
the 5 by 5 process. When you discover the 1 or 2 of those products, guess what happens next, Stephanie? All the other products in the baseline just appear right in front of you. All the other variations, shapes, size, types, colors, we just put more of the same product in different packaging
Brands.
and give
Yeah.
it right back into that dialed in brand. For people who are looking
Nice.
for a camping widget, all you get is a brand that sells camping widgets, and it sells every kind of possible innovative or existing camping widget that meets that criteria for that single audience who was searching 15 million times a year just for that camping widget. Okay, so now we could end up with a brand that might have 50 to 100 SKUs in one brand on one Amazon seller account dialed into one avatar. Yeah. Yep. The outcome is a 6, 7, multi 7, even 8-figure business, even 9 figures. We had this happen with one of our clients who just got a intent to purchase from a company that wants to
Okay.
buy him. After 5
Yeah.
years, he was running about 15 million plus a year. He just took a $29 million offer.
Wow. I think
5
Amazon
years in
needs
the
to
business.
sign you right now because you're basically pushing their business half so far. But aside the technology and the fulfillment that Amazon offers, do they offer financing for sellers
They
like you?
used
Or
to, through a Goldman Sachs initiative inside the dashboard, they used to give you opportunities. Now you have to have a certain threshold much higher than the requirements a lot of sellers will need. And they'll be doing like 500, 1 million, 5 million. And so it's really for the larger businesses now. The smaller businesses have a lot of outside
mm,
funding. We have a number of funding partnerships with companies that can support multi-lender opportunities for startups or growing companies, particularly
mm,
marketing companies who have got, you know, Amazon accounts running already and have done their test markets and need capital for growth of successful products. Like they need that next
okay.
1,000, next 5,000, next 10,000 units. I have a variety of lenders who will jump on them like white on rice to help them get that money into their operations. There's a smart process by which we consult to them to make sure they know the numbers and keep their profitability and service that credit capital line correctly to grow the business. And it's all businesses will eventually will need that. It's just a normal process of a business to grow from capital credit lines, which is just fine. That's good debt for good purpose of sales and business support and operations, not buying cars and crap like that. And those are operational controls that every business should have in place later on as they grow to give them that opportunity to grow even larger, faster by using that capital line for inventory. Like when it's dialed in, you're feeding the beast, we call it, which means that needs to be inventory in the warehouse, inventory on the water, and inventory that's being manufactured to replace the upstream. So you'll have continuous inventory flow to feed that machine more and more inventory because these systems are huge. They are greater than most people can comprehend. They are moving so many products, it's hard for most people to understand the abundance by which they're moving so that they can properly assess the opportunity. So when people talk to me about launching a business and I mention 25K to the business capital, I will literally tell people that if you are serious, you want to grow a 7-figure brand in less than 5 years, you need to, follow a particular process. You're going to have to deploy 50,000 or more in year one, up to 100,000, not necessarily out of cash, your pocket, but out of the growth of the business, out of the growth of additional sales by putting, capital back in, replowing profits back in, and then probably credit lines, because you start that engine in month 12. In month 36, which is years 2 and 3, Amazon's admission to us through one of our partner calls was that you will see a 20% growth in market share opportunity in their system done correctly in year 2, and a 40% possible growth in year 3. And that's where scale can come. Okay. So years 3 to 5 can be scale because you're now open to a potential after 1, 2, and 3 years of moving your product successfully in the market to reach up to 40% of your market share in years 3 through 5. And that's when this thing turns like a crazy.
Machine.
One of the brands we control is set to hit 14 million this year. We turn about
Wow.
1.5 million in inventory every 90 days, just to give you some scope.
So what's the team structure like? Like, what team strength are you looking at to start in this level and churning out this level of business?
So with AI systems, standard operating procedures, the right technology supporting you, we have individual operators in my business who built with us as business builders over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, who are now operating companies on profit sharing with me. Okay. I took the trained CEO operators who became successful and I give them an opportunity to partner with us to run companies. So I have 4 operators running 12 brands. Because they're blinky lights and dashboards and you don't have to move the product, it really gets down to understanding the operating procedures. So we can run 7, 8, even 9-figure companies with just 3 to 4 assistants supporting a primary operator, no employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the beauty of these
That makes
businesses
sense.
and the beauty of the internet and now AI supported tool sets that we use at every step of the process, from the images to the just-in-time logistics to the marketing to everything supported. So an operator can use those SOPs and AI tools to help them do the work of 3 people, literally.
Exactly.
Yep. So you can run lean and mean into 6 and multi 7 figures just with yourself in a systemized process. We do it continuously.
So what are your like top AI tools you use to make your business run smoother?
Yeah.
Because I know in your book you talk about the automated income flow, but
Almost
what are the top
automated.
AI tools the almost automated income. But
Yeah, that's
before
what
we
I
get
consider
into
to
the book,
be.
what are the AI tools you use?
Sure. Yeah, so that's what I
Yeah.
consider to be Amazon's structure. And here's why: because Amazon itself is
Okay.
a logistics company on the back
Mm-hmm.
end. It's called Fulfilled by Amazon. But when they
Fulfill that one.
purchased it, as you mentioned earlier, it is a logistics, freight, and management company with planes, trains, and automobiles. And it delivers everything to people in 2 days or less, as we know when you order stuff from Amazon. We are able to use
Yes.
that infrastructure, not just for Amazon, but for our TikTok shop, for Shopify, for even some retail shipment. We can use Amazon's infrastructure to deliver all those products. So Amazon's warehousing and infrastructure can be the middle hub of a spoke based opportunity that allows us to move
Yeah.
those products to any of those locations as quickly as possible. With that, I don't have a huge warehouse. We have a minimum sized warehouse on one of our businesses, and then we use 3PL at Amazon's warehouses that we control to give an opportunity to move that product to the customer. So what we have here is a very lean and mean system that gives people
Okay.
the opportunity to have automated sales done for them by those systems, delivered and returned, and even customer supported while we're sleeping. Right. So we don't have to do any of that. It's all managed automatically. So what
Yeah.
we're doing then is working to sell that data to an AI engine. So with the tools that
Mm.
we developed, I don't really use a lot of outside tools. We developed a system and process internally with our green light. We have what we call a Cayman data intelligence tool that we developed internally to find customer need intent, to discover the right product data set, to build the AI tools we needed to use agents, image
Mm.
optimizers, listing and creation tools for writing the copy in line with Cosmo. Those are now built into my system, right? So I can build an entire targeted listing that I know is not only Cosmo compliant, but beats the scores of the existing listings data wise. So it's a better data score than their current listings when it goes live. I know my images and graphics and copy are both shot in the physical sense at a company we use in the US to shoot the top end photography. But then we use AI
Nice.
tool sets like
To
Flow.
enhance.
We use Free Pick and Nano Banana. We use IdeaGen and other tool sets to create both new images and videos, and marketing tools and assets are all created by those tool sets now. We even prototype boxing and the packaging with AI tool sets now to get exactly kind of what we want to see from the illustrator, so they can have a visual mock-up exactly very close to what we want to see using AI, so they quickly can develop those packages and give them to the manufacturer. We use it for the logo and idea generation of new brands. We use it for creating the marketing assets that are on the actual listings. My 17-year-old daughter uses a series of tools and a process to run the sponsor brand videos that are created for our operations team. And she creates those pretty videos and gives them to the operators, and they use them to market the products. So we have a very systemized software in place along with certain tool sets to support that discover, that build, even the optimize. So we have a PPC tool set that's ran by AI, and the more data it's fed over time, the smarter it makes its decisions. The operator checks in to make sure that it's running the rule sets and making the changes we want to see, but the AI system is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us. So
Amazing.
yeah, I didn't find any tool sets in the world that worked specifically like, Jungle Scout and Helium 10.
Yeah.
I've developed the first system before Jungle Scout came on. It's called Ascent Inspector with our team and moved it out a long time ago in the Amazon world. And all those other tool sets are really about product research only, but they always end up in the same places with the same product targets. And our system was developed to be a product platform. It is about to go live on CaymanData.com, where we're going to allow people to use that system, come into our processes, go through the discover and the build and the optimize phase with training and support and real-time communities and our whole process along with the software support as a product
Mm,
development platform, not a product
okay.
research platform. It means from concept to listing to launch to tracking and optimizing, the entire platform will do all of that. So we're kind of a
Okay.
unique platform that's not even in the market yet and has no competitor at this time.
Well, I'll make sure to put the link in the description so people can just go and grab it. With your book, Automated Income, what was the driver? What was the inspiration behind you writing it? Because a lot of people would basically, you've unlocked the system of Amazon building and you can just keep the secret to yourself. Why did you think to share it with the world?
It's one of the ways that I have reminded people over and over again that if you are able to support others and prove the process by supporting others in the process, you might discover some of your B player people can turn into A players. And that's how my operators have been discovered. And they, don't need me to micromanage. I didn't hire employees. I trained people to be successful in their businesses. And out of that
Nice.
loyalty, I said, hey, anybody want to partner with us? And I've kind of raised the cream of the crop operators to operate inside of Voltage now. So as I deployed energy into other people, their successes have become my success, right? And as we are now acquiring companies, we're doing that same process on a larger scale. We're partners with a company called Patriot Growth Capital, which is a veteran-backed, veteran-owned, veteran-funded initiative to employ veterans in the companies that we acquire. So as I work with
Hmm.
someone to build a company and get them into a successful operations perspective, I have what's called a first right of refusal to look at acquiring their company away from them when
Yeah.
they're ready to sell it with my private equity group, at which point my company takes over operational control as we acquire that company and we grow it to a second exit. So I'm both the beginning and the end of people working with our clients, as well as the next lever if they want to stay along and ride to the next exit. We
Yeah.
deploy even more capital and operational controls to grow that company even larger. So I have taken the initiative to write the book and other things to basically find my unicorns who can come in and become CEO operators working for 12 months with us and go through the process and methodology that we've deployed for 12 years successfully. It's outlined in the book,
Yeah.
and to look at see who's willing to work with us at a much larger scale after I train them up. And this isn't for everybody. This is a mentoring and a discipleship, if you will, because it takes a lot of energy and time. People
Yeah.
do buy
Pouring
in
into
to
people.
work. Yeah, people do buy
Mm-hmm.
in to work with us because I've given stuff to for people for free and they don't do the work because they have no skin in the game. So people will pay to work with us, but the opportunity is obviously much greater to come into a one-on-one relationship and work through our processes and work through with our systems and technology. So the book was written to extol that strategy, and
Okay.
each chapter is actually an interview from my podcast. that touches on each of the stages of our product launch playbook, and with an expert there speaking on their specific area of research or PPC or management or fiduciary or capital raising or investment strategies, logistics strategies, advertising and AI strategies. Those are built into each of the chapters in sort of an interview
Okay.
format. And so as I went through these conversations and then realized that we were talking about these topics and I was weighing in on them as well, that someone in our group said, "Hey, we should write a book out of this. We should, that is the strategy. We should make it into a book." And I'm like, "Well, that's a tremendous idea." So every
Yeah.
chapter is an author, if you will, from the podcast who endorsed their part of the book and then also helped us send it out to their people because, well, it was a co-marketing initiative that they got to be a part of. And in the chapters, there's resources and there's case studies and there's information to support each of the conversations for every chapter. And then I had the honor of my friend and mentor, Kevin Harrington, who is the original As Seen on TV guy and the Shark Tank, originate Shark Tank, write the forward for it, which was super cool, and endorsed the book as well, which is great. And so it's a strategy guide, and so people understand it's not a tactical thing. It's going to teach you the strategy of building an e-commerce company, starting on your first sales channel, Amazon FBA, but then how to get into other sales channels and why you should build that into a holistic e-commerce company that is really worth
Okay.
more in the end than at any time during the business building phase, which is the exit. So we talk a lot about that and the acquisition, exit, and strategies you need to deploy in your business from the very beginning to make sure it becomes a very saleable asset so that in years 3 through 5 through 7, you have a possible generational or life event, kind of like Daniel, that is your opportunity as you grow these companies to build them into going concerns that have a saleable asset.
Neil has given us the opportunity to get this book for free because he's packed all the knowledge there. So I'll make sure I put the link in the description where you can grab the book and apply the discount code Bricks and Banks to get your free copy. Thank you so much, Neil, for the privilege.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I hope 10 people pick that up and have an opportunity to get into it. And if anybody's serious about building a real business that has an exit opportunity, that's what we're talking about. It should be very clear. I know a lot of people just talk about Amazon FBA. Sure, it's great. It's the first place we incubate the brands. It's 49% of all US e-commerce sales. It's huge. So if you can prove it on Amazon, you can take it to other channels. And that's what we've discovered
Sure.
as a way to run the business, to build a lifestyle business. We live on 55 acres, 65 now in the country, and I homeschool my daughters, and we built our entire life around our ability to have a business like this. And I've helped a lot of people leave their corporate jobs, create new revenue streams and opportunities for their businesses in all walks of life. Those who are really serious about building a business, not just a side hustle or a hobby business, but really want to put it
Yeah.
down to a real business. That's what we're talking about.
Nice. I know a lot of people start out their business and they plan at some point to exit it, but it's very difficult. Some don't even see the exit strategy. But in your case, you've helped many entrepreneurs build their business such that they and prep it for exits. So what's
Yes.
the strategy you use in helping your brand build up onto the point where they can exit for millions?
So from the very beginning, we
Mm,
set up the structure of the company and train them on the fundamentals of business first. So as they
okay.
are looking to identify first products and we're going to go to the Amazon market with that product, there's a particular process of starting up the company correctly, putting the LLC in place, putting the financing in place correctly, putting the business structure in place from the very beginning to ensure that it becomes easier to manage and that
Mm,
as it grows and goes later, as you continually launch products and identify the products that become most profitable in the upside of the business, you will now understand a cash flow plan for 90 days. You will understand what a run rate looks like. You'll understand how to deploy capital. You'll understand
mm,
your profit and loss statement. You'll actually have the business aptitude to run the company to 7 figures. I think a
yeah.
lot of people don't recognize the mental and business aptitude it was required to run a 7 figure company. They just have the idea that it sounds really sexy, but in actuality, they don't know how to replicate those results. They kind of got there on a bit of luck. Maybe they got a little lucky choosing a good product, but they don't
Mm,
actually understand how to manage the company correctly. And that causes a great failure point in their ability to grow. And I see that very often with companies who've never been trained. So we train them in the business first. We train them in the fundamentals and growth of a business. We help them structure everything every step of the way to ensure it's done correctly as we coach and mentor them with the idea of selling the company. So we make sure they understand what they need to be doing correctly, how they need to be spending their time and energy and attention and money in order to see that as the ultimate outcome of their initiative with us. Yeah. Well, I mean, initially it just gets down to the fact that the understanding is you should not start the business without the expectation that at some point you're going to sell it. I know a lot of people kind of have a problem in their brain with that concept. Well, Neil, what if do I have to sell the business? No, you don't. Do I have to sell it to you? No, you don't have to sell it to me. There's what's called a gentleman's agreement of first right of refusal. Do I, why wouldn't I sell the business later or never at all? Why wouldn't I let it keep cash flowing? And really, those are just amateur statements from people who don't understand the value of business building at the end of the day. And they also don't understand the value of money. I know that sounds really critical, but let me explain why. Money in this moment, right now, is worth less than it was when we started this conversation, right? It's called inflation.
Yes.
Every day, every hour, unfortunately, until something gigantic changes or something shifts, inflation is a transitory and normal aspect of life, kind of like death and taxes. So with inflation occurring, while you will cash flow that business, inflation will always be there. And the one way to subvert inflation is to sell the business at a profitable upside, take the profit at that upside and deploy it now, not 2 years from now, or not waiting for 2 years for that money to come into the business when something could go wrong or something could change and you're on the upside. Instead, you sell the business, but you take the money back now, those soldiers, and because you have expertise, because you know how to run another business, because you know how you deploy it back into a new business. You do it again. Okay. You
Okay.
redeploy those assets back into the business. You reshift that owner equity back into the company. That causes less of a taxation event for you, as well as redeploying it back into inventory to sell the business. And because you have the knowledge and the greater capitalization, guess what happens, Stephanie? Do you think you could do it a lot faster? Do you think you might have found some other products and brands along the way that you can launch with confidence and like I could totally crush that and I'm
Definitely.
going
And
to
you've
do that? Yeah.
created technology around it to make it easy and
You
smoother,
know
seamless,
all the things you didn't know at the
ins and
beginning.
outs.
You now have all this experience and wisdom. You got additional capitalization to move faster at a higher risk rate. You know where the market is and opportunities. You may even directly compete if you don't have a non-compete with the business you're selling, or you may be able to work indirectly into a market you see but does not compete with your existing business, but you'll crush it. So you can go right back into that market, okay, and do this all over again, but do it 10 times faster, right?
Nice.
And that has been the business model by which we call the platinum principle. It's been deployed in our company and in our walk and in our life. Okay, we just acquired a company from a client that did this. Daniel is selling his company. We're looking to acquire a company from one of our other clients. We are, actively looking for additional businesses. We just closed on one. We want to look for 5 more of those. And so we are not only the beginning, but the end for those who see that opportunity to not only cash out, but put that money back to work and go do it again. Because now you've
Wow.
got a whole ecosystem of build, grow, scale, exit, build, grow, scale, exit. And that is one of the greatest business secrets that most people miss.
And you've basically worn so many hats, being a mentor, being a dad of 4
Yep.
beautiful daughters,
Thank
and
you.
mentoring so many and exiting business, teaching people how to do the business. So looking ahead, what excites you about the future of e-commerce and
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, especially in this era of AI? What advice would you leave for someone listening right now
Well,
and
here's the
who's
thing, right? In
basically
terms of
sitting on the fence?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
a physical product business that has
Yeah.
tangible, goods that we sell. I was looking for something to raise up here. I don't sell pins, but it's a physical product, right? This is
Yes.
this is an evergreen opportunity, a hedge against inflation, a hedge against market changes. Okay, I've been at this for a while. We went through the COVID issue. We've gone through the tariff stuff. Like we've gone through major cycles of change, but everything continues to stay the same when it comes to products. People
Sure.
want to buy products. So whether it's being
People
made
need
by a
people need to
machine,
buy products.
yeah, whether it's being made by a machine in a manufacturing company that's now dark manufacturing, which is happening, right? No lights,
Yeah.
all machines making products. There's still a need for those physical products and consumership in the world. That's an evergreen product opportunity that will always be there. Digital things change. AI is changing a lot about the digital world, from the programming to the graphics to the copy. And so many people are confused about whether they can do something with it or whether it's going to negatively impact them, right? But here's what I know about physical products. While AI is changing, physical products are not. right? People still need their products. We're still consumer driven. We still need our grinders and our mixers and our dish towels and our pots and pans and these things to survive. And new people are being raised up and they need more of those too. And sometimes things break, so people need new ones. That is going to be an evergreen opportunity of physical products for those who are wondering, can it shift? Can it change? What's called elasticity of supply and demand has changed the need at different times for product types or availability of product based on supply chain or manufacturing or issues like that, right? Or even growth situations like we saw in 2020, which was a huge hyper growth situation. But the truth of the matter is, anything you take out of a fiat currency, then put into a physical asset is a good thing. Okay, a lot of people understand the idea of gold and silver and physical assets that hold wealth. Now people consider that to be cryptocurrency too, but that's still a digital, not a physical asset. Okay.
Assets.
Some people would argue it is, but technically it's not. Okay. But if I take those things, okay, and I invest in them too, but I also take some of that capital that's sitting in a bank or is investing in other ways, and I deploy it into a physical product, that product is always going to be worth 5 to 10 times what I bought it for. Okay. It's the difference between when and where it's being sold. Okay.
Sure.
You have water in your tap. I hope you do. And it's free and you can go drink it, right? Okay. But if you go out the door and there's a vending machine for water, they're going to charge you $1.50 for that water, right?
Exactly.
You go around to Starbucks, they're going to charge you $6 probably for that water. Okay. You get on an airplane, they're going to charge you $8 for that same bottle of water you could have got for $6, $1.50 or free out of your tap, right?
Yeah.
So the value of it changes based on its location, its demand, and when it is needed by that person and a critical component. And that's physical products in a nutshell. What we want to do is look at the product opportunities that say, hey, if somebody needs that water bottle, I could be the one that sells it to them for $8, not $1.50. The only difference is location and my ability to sell it to them. That creates this upside of unlimited opportunity in the physical product world when you apply that to any product you can sell. Just do not marry the first product you sell. Do not marry any of your products. You marry the brand. I really, really, really hope people will hear me when I say this. It's so important. Why? Brands live on forever. Okay. I can name a couple brands right now.
Demand for the product can change.
Yeah. Well, I can name a couple of brands right now you'll know about. You may never have purchased their product, but you know about them and they're 50, 100, 150 years old, right? We can talk about, Lamborghini. It's an old brand. Have you ever owned one? You know what they are? Can you name the models of Lamborghini? Not many people could, but we know they exist and we understand their value. So brands live forever, but products will change. If you really grasp that concept, you will not come to a physical product business and approach it as I need one product to make this whole thing work, or the whole thing is a failure. Products have a life cycle. Products may not work correctly because you didn't sell them to the market correctly. Right? Because remember, we're selling product to an engine first. We're selling its data. We're not even selling the product, just the data.
Yeah.
Right? Just the data. And if the data works well and sells the product, which then gets delivered in 2 hours or less, or 2 days or less, and the person uses the product and it doesn't break and they love it and they want to leave a review, or they don't want to leave a negative review, which is okay too, then we've got our economic engine. We need to do that repeatedly over and over and over again. And if one product doesn't sell well, you launch a different one, right? If the data gets better, it gets better. If it gets worse, you don't marry it, you move to the next product. If you can understand that concept, you will ultimately have success in e-commerce. You may fail out of product launches because you didn't align it right. You may not have optimized it correctly, and so you still can't get it selling because maybe you're just not figuring out what they want to buy and how they want to buy it, which is not a failure of the product. It's a failure of you to recognize the marketing
strategy
correctly, right? It's failure to you to sell the conditional statements that they had in their mind when they wanted to buy that product. That's not the product failure, that's you. So figure that problem out and the sales will fix everything. Create the great product, that works too. Product has a manufacturing defect, you sold the crap out of it, and then the product starts giving bad reviews, you fix the product. That's the other side of the equation. Once you fix the product and you know you can sell it, then you're balanced again and things will go really well. But I think a lot of people get caught up in this idea that if I launch one product or it's a whole thing, it's a failure. But after today's call, you should know better than that, right?
We definitely know better than that. And that brings us to the next segment of this call. It's called the firecracker round. So this is just me asking you a bunch of questions and you hitting me right back with the first answer that comes to mind. So what's your best and worst investment moment? Not much
So
of a
my
firecracker
worst
question.
investment moment was going into that power company way too far, way too far.
Okay.
My best investment
Best.
was taking a hedging a bet on a relationship that has worked out for the last 12 years, which was my partner Reed, who I took a risk on after an hour-long phone call and decided to invest time and money working with him over 12 years ago. And that's one of my best investments outside of marrying my wife. I should probably say that first. She
Definitely
invested in me. I'm not sure that's really fair to say it that way. And I know you're using the word investment maybe in terms of money, but to me,
money, yeah.
investments is
But that's
time,
still good.
it's
And yeah,
relationship. Money
investments
is
is
just one
time,
component of an
money,
investment.
effort, emotions. It's all in the mix. So makes sense.
Correct.
Shout out to Katie and Reed.
Ride or die, partner.
Ride or die. What's your
Yeah.
best productivity tool? What's your best productivity tool?
My assistant, Nicole, not the one you were thinking of, right? Okay. Nicole using calendars and scheduling and stuff. I live by her support of the calendar. She's my best productivity tool in terms of helping me manage my time away from things that are taking a lot of it. There isn't at the end, there isn't a particular tool that is superior, I think, like, oh, this calendar or that productivity, or use Monday or use this other tracking tool. You can
Yeah.
make any of those successful if you put the right
Work for
processes
you.
and people in place at the end of the day. And so it's most important you figure out what that right process is, regardless of which tool you use. And for me, it was a calendaring system that Nicole runs, and she manages my calendar explicitly. And with that, I'm freed up to do these kinds of things and get where I need to get and do what I need to do without having to be in the minutia of that.
Wow. Shout out to Nicole, keeping it down at the back end. So if you could go back 20 years from today, what advice would you give your younger self to do, and what would you do to do anything differently? I don't know if you got the question.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna not answer it maybe in the way you want me to, or maybe hopefully, okay. So it's not what a lot of people are gonna be like. Well, go back and do this one thing because in the past is the past. Really, it's just what we do now and the present to the future. So really, changing the past won't affect anything I do in the future. If I were to look back and say, "Hey, dummy, don't sell your Bitcoin," it doesn't really change a whole lot, right? If I were to go back and say, invest in Martha Stewart stock because that's going to blow up, or hey, just dump a bunch of money into Amazon and Facebook and it's all going to be okay. I like where I ended up. I like my family, I like my location, I like the business I'm in. I really wouldn't want to change any of that. And if I had to go back and tell myself to do something different, I don't know where I'd end up. And I don't think I'd like that very much. So I really would end up just saying, don't change anything. You're going to love how it turns out. So because I live on this large hobby homestead where we have a lot of things to do and animals to take care of, and we burn wood for firewood, and I like to get out and do chainsaw and wood, and we have 8 acres I have to mow, and then I have to manage a fence line and take care of my parents off and on up here and other things we do. I have a lot of activity that I just do outside where I get to put myself in the nothing box. So it's like 4 or 6 hours of mowing on the tractor or the mowers. Then I just, put my headphones on or listen to a podcast or just put on my noise canceling and then just go into my mind. And I have, 4 hours or 6 hours of decompression time to just, be in my nothing box where I'm doing some mindless work, if you will. And it just gives me time to decompress. So anything I'm doing outside here on the property, even just chucking wood or chainsawing, are activities of physical nature that help me decompress and refocus my mind. I try to take a 4-hour mile walk with my wife every day. When it's not raining or one of us is sick or whatever, we try to go 4 miles every day together. That's time for us to decompress. A lot of times we talk the entire time. Sometimes we don't talk a whole lot. It's just time to be together. That's great time to reset and recompress and spend time with my wife away from our family.
Oh, that's amazing. Neil, how can we reach you? It's been an amazing time having you on the pod, and everybody's asking, how can we get you to you?
Sure. You can go over to voltagedm.com. That's voltagedigitalmarketing.com. And you can check out what we're doing there at Voltage. Pretty soon, you'll be able to go to caimandata.com and check out what we're doing with the whole tool set system and
Pretty
platform.
soon, definitely.
Yep, very shortly. Anywhere on the internet, you can put in my last name. You'll find me on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all the social medias if you feel like they're attached. Well, yeah, LinkedIn or anywhere else, you'll find me. I've got a short last name I can't hide. You'll find me anywhere, any of those locations you feel like you want to connect with me.
Wow. Neil, it's been fantastic being on the pod with you today. You've basically broken down and broken the limits really of what e-commerce is all about. So you basically demystify the process and your back end strategy, and you're basically an open book. You shared everything. And you didn't hold back. You didn't give yourself credit. You made mention of the people that's supporting you at the back end. That's what a true leader looks like. And you're the epitome of a true leader. And it's been amazing having you on the pod today.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say that. And I very much appreciate that. I don't have to be the big dog anymore. The best gift I ever gave myself was not needing to be somebody anymore.
Thank you so much for being on the pod today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
There we have it, guys. Neil has basically broken down and demystified e-commerce with us. Basically, Amazon FBA. So you've been thinking of getting into Amazon FBA. He told you need at least $25,000 to get into it. So do it right, because there's no point going there with $5K and burning all your money and saying, oh, that doesn't work. All these gurus are lying. He basically came out with the truth. Make sure you watch this episode again, take down notes, and let's continue to turn knowledge into action and bricks into banks. This has been Bricks and Banks with Steph, and this is me signing out.